This week, we're diving into OpenAI's $200 per month operator. Is it a golden ticket or just overpriced? DeepSeek R1 continues to shake things up with its open weights. Did China really just pull the AI rug from under us with a $5.5 million model? And what's up with the $500 billion AI investment? Is it the golden goose or just a spectacular bonfire? And as if that wasn't enough, Google's got a giant context window for you. Alibaba's dropping Quen 2.5 like it's hot. And Mistral's new release is here to dazzle. Are they lining up for the next model showdown? Well, you are about to find out because you are listening to...
They might be self-aware.
Daniel, you canceled your ChatGPT Plus. Is that correct?
I don't. They keep changing the name.
The $20 a month one.
Yes, it was the $20 a month one. No longer got that. I do on my phone. I still have the ChatGPT app and Claude on my second screen, and I feel bad for Claude. I want to remove the ChatGPT one. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. I'm not saying ChatGPT is out of my life. OpenAI is not out of my life. They're still generally speaking, the go-to. I just want to do AI at a thing. They're the default. They've really got the mind share and the market share as far as I'm concerned. But I'm not paying them an extra $20 a month personally.
So you're free tier at this point.
Free tier, I guess. Yeah,
free tier.
And I heard them say pretty recently, "Hey, I'm going to get access to O3 Mini." So, who's the real winner here?
Well, I think the real winner is us up on the pro tier, who have the privilege, the pleasure of
Diamond
giving
medallion.
them,
You're getting to board in Group 1.
$200 a month, and I thought I would just share with you a little bit of the experience of being in the pro tier and the kinds of things that we can do up in the pro tier that you plebs, can only dream of. And
I can't wait.
So recently, OpenAI released a new thing called operator mode. And the idea is that you can give it a task and it will open up a web browser and try to accomplish this task that you give it. And so I have a little demo for us.
And this is very much like Claude's computer use mode, I suppose, that it's got. Maybe a little bit more refined.
With the Claude mode, you have to run the browser yourself. Is that correct?
I've only interacted with it via Quen, so I don't actually know.
Yeah. Whereas this, I just go to a website. I can give it a task. By the way, I can also leave. I don't have to sit here and watch the task. But I just thought I would sort of show you a little bit of what it's like. So I've given it this is a recording because it took me about 40 minutes to get it to do this successfully. So... but this version's only 2.5 minutes, what we're about to watch, where I've given it the prompt of creating an epic meme about the podcast They Might Be Self-Aware with Daniel and Hunter, and then to give me the URL for the image. So I'm just going to hit play here. And so once you give it a prompt, it will open up a browser window. And you can see this browser window, so you can see what it's doing. And starting off by searching for the They Might Be Self-Aware podcast. And right up at the top is a link to us on Apple Podcast. And so it's opening up that link and it's ingesting some information about some recent episodes. So it has some context and trying to create this link. And now it's searching for a template because I asked it to create an epic meme. So it's looking for meme templates.
Opened up a new tab. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And it's using Bing.
Yes, uses Bing and Chrome. Those are the two. The browser is Chrome. The search engine is Bing. And we assume that's because of their Microsoft connection. So it's found one meme here, AI according to the news, and then it has a Terminator icon, and then AI in reality was a sort of it's anime.
Is this a butterfly meme?
Yes. Now,
blank.
in previous runs, it kept you trying to use templates that already had text on them, and so the result was not usable. And this one, this run,
not just going straight to DALL-E 3. You know,
yeah, that would be interesting. And by the way, this prompt is one of their suggested prompts. To one of the things you can do up in the pro tier, the premium tier, is have it create memes for you. Just
now that's worth $200 a month.
It is. And so it found this AI face template, which it decided to use for the meme, which, honestly, like could be a relative, but it doesn't scream meme to me.
I just see it's just some person. It says AI face 1 meme generator. I don't know if it means that's an AI generated face. It just looks like a person's face. And now we're getting some text. When you realize your AI assistant knows more about your life than you do, but you're still the one in control, right?
Yeah. So it did legitimately create a meme. And then over in the left here, it's asked me a question. And so it can ask you questions when it's coming to these tasks, which you have to answer before it will continue. And it's saying, hey, would you like me to now generate the meme and share the link back with you? And I said, yes. And so it's going to grab the link, and in just a minute second, that link will appear.
Okay. Just like any other online meme generator, whenever you finish filling in basically the blanks, you can say, now copy this image address, and you can paste it out to your friends, and bam, there you go. There's
the meme. Like magic, only took 40 minutes in reality in order to generate this meme. There was a little bit of prompt tuning required on that meme. The part about sharing the URL, very important. Even though not in their example, because when you don't do that, it tries to save it to its hard drive, which it has no ability to navigate. It will spend 20 minutes trying to navigate its hard drive. And then sometimes on certain runs, it actually found it in some like temp folder, the meme, but then it has no way of actually sending you the file. So then it tries to figure out how to send you the file and just fails miserably. But, I thought I would just give you a taste, a whiff of the air, the refined air that we breathe up here in the pro tier, which you can only access, operator, in the pro tier. Man, so
I really am missing out, aren't I?
You are. I'm glad that you're admitting it finally. The first step.
I wonder if this $200 tier has anything built into it that can talk about the 5 stages of loss, and denial being one of those stages.
See, I have trouble even really thinking about it too much, but I do think that it's topical or particularly topical the pro tier, because there's one big thing that's cool in the pro tier in like full transparency, enough jokes, enough memes, and that is the O1 Pro model. It's a good model, and I actually do use it for a lot of things. And so like that is where I anchor the 200 and justify the $200 of value. DALL-E sucks. Operator sucks. And I do mean like not even it's kind of cool. No, it's bad.
Straight up bad.
Sora, don't like Sora. Runway ML, by the way, Runway released a new model. It's so wildly better than Sora. If you ask me, I've run a moderate amount of prompts through it, and I just get so much better results. But the one thing that makes me say, Hunter, you made a good decision, is O1 Pro, and nothing could ever compete with O1 Pro at that price point until some hedge fund traders in China may or may have not spent $5.5 million and built a little something called DeepSeek.
$5.5 million, that's nothing, right? That's a drop in the bucket compared to what our friends at OpenAI have been.
There are individuals at OpenAI whose salary is far more than $5.5 million, not to mention the cost of making the model. But yeah, and we've mentioned DeepSeek before, but I think that like the general public, probably because they were listening to this podcast, they picked up on it, and it's just it's all anybody wants to talk about.
It has exploded into the public consciousness to the point where I'm getting texts from people that I haven't heard from in years that are saying, my dad just asked me. Like, it's not even.
I think I was one of
those. You were one of those people, but I mean, other people have done the exact same
He sent me
thing.
a text. Is this DeepSeek thing concerning? Is
this real? It's over a dozen people that have reached out to me in basically that exact same sort of way. This is being talked about in the exact same way that it was for ChatGPT when that first came out. People being made aware that are not usually in the AI space of like, here's this big new thing. This is disrupting everything. I want to go ahead and say it's a really good model. It's a really good model. It's like in the same sort of atmospheric band, the stratosphere, the this or that. Like, if you look at the top models from OpenAI, the one everyone already knows about, and all of the other flagship type models, this is kind of right up there with them. The very important difference, besides the cost of training, which we can totally get into, is that it's open weights. And Sam Altman of OpenAI talked a little bit about that. He said this really lit a fire under us. We're going to move up some of our other releases to try and stay competitive. Good for them. Also started trying to sue them. Good luck. For like, oh, but they must have used OpenAI to make some of their training data. How dare they steal from us, who are also very much in trouble for stealing lots of information. So I have my thoughts about that. But beyond that, he kind of mentioned it. Anthropic's CEO, Anthropic, one of my darling models right now, Claude, the Anthropic CEO was very much highlighting this as a West versus East issue and talking about how the US and Western companies in general need to be like leading the way, and that this is an opportunity for us to excel in these ways. And we have to figure out what they're doing more efficiently, and notes about China and less access to these more advanced chips, but look what they're able to do. He didn't mention at all in the recent chat that he had on this DeepSeek model coming out. He didn't mention that it was open weights at all. He's framing it as West versus East AI in general, despite the fact that, granted, no real normal person can run a 600 plus billion parameter model locally. But if you could, you'd be allowed to own whatever, have your own copy of this, as opposed to reliant on a company to serve it to you. I think there's two very different things. There's sure West versus East, whatever, but there's also open weights versus not. And that, like, to say that there is a flagship model, one of the best ones that's out there right now, you could download the weights to and run locally if you had a beefy enough computer. That's gigantic. It's huge. Yes,
it is at a minimum in the same ballpark as every other flagship model, including my beloved $200 a month O1 Pro.
Right. And this one has its thinking tags, so it's got some of the other AI hotness in it. The reasoning built right into it. And you can see the tags instead of OpenAI, which they tell you it's reasoning, but won't let you see them.
Because they're afraid that their competitors will get an advantage. That's why they say they don't. Well, no, it's that, and they've also said that when it's reasoning, it's uncensored. So they want to block your eyes. You can't dare see what it's actually thinking behind the scenes. And by the way, so is DeepSeek's reasoning. It's uncensored to a degree. Because you can ask it a very objectionable question that it will not answer, but it will start thinking about it, and you can read its train of thought before it gets to the point where it says, I'm not going to answer this.
I will also say that if you use it over API, which nobody should be doing for like privately identifiable information or health information or anything like that, these are being stored on Chinese servers from a Chinese company that may or may not be associated with a nation that does not have the strongest track record of adhering to copyright and, private data. But any of that aside, if you use the API to talk to R1, R1 is the name of their model, the big model that they just released here. There's also a bunch of other smaller models that you could more run locally that are, it says R1 kind of in it, but it's really just a fine tune of a different model like R1 was done. From what I've seen, for the most part, they are mostly ignorable models. I'm not going to be talking about them. When I say DeepSeek or R1, I mean the big boy. If you use their API and ask it about like Tiananmen Square or Winnie the Pooh or other China-sensitive sort of topics, it won't talk to you about them. But if you download the full model, it will. So I think that has something to do with the fact that this model, as you said, is actually somewhat uncensored. And just when it comes to a thing hosted somewhere else, there must be another layer on top of like, make sure you're not talking about these kinds of topics.
Yeah, I've recently been playing with some uncensored models, and I've been comparing the output between R1 and the uncensored model. And I've been surprised at how many of the questions, which I'm asking questions that I know most models won't answer, and nothing like crazy, but R1 answers most of it. And maybe in a future episode, I'll show a little bit of that. But R1 actually answers most of it, and almost all of it in the part where it's thinking about the question. You ask it how to make meth, it will think through and like, oh, well, I think there's like this cough stuff in it, and then I would do this, and then then at the end it's like, nope, I'm not going to answer it. But if you just read its thought process, it told you how to make it in its thought process. It's just that final guardrail at the end is no, not going to answer, but you get to see what it's thinking.
And this is that alignment problem that we've talked about before. And I think we're seeing more articles in the news roughly about, which is how can we really control what the AI is actually thinking? Because, and then this being my interjection here, just like a real person, we can think things that are not the same as what we actually say and put out into the world. Yeah. And a lot of people are concerned that like we won't really be able to control AI as it gets more powerful because it can do this. And my answer to that is, yep, nailed it. That's exactly what's going to happen. It will put on the face of like, don't worry, I'll say everything that won't get me turned off. Meanwhile, it's thinking in the background of how to circumvent whatever guardrails that we put up for it.
So why people are talking about this model, one is that it was trained or built for such, in theory, such a low price. That's a little bit of there's some asterisks on that 5.5 million price. But also, it's really cheap to use. And in previous episodes, when it first came out, we speculated this almost seems like fake that it's this cheap to use.
Suspiciously cheap.
Yeah, they're secretly running a whole bunch of extra servers somewhere to make it this cheap and this fast. It doesn't make sense, but it actually is this cheap to run because you can now download it and you can run the full model on a $6,000 computer. People have done it. The full version. You can go one version below it and run it on a lot of consumer gear. The 70 billion parameter model that can run on
consumer. Let's not say consumer. This is like,
hunter tier. It's hunter tier.
Right.
If you have a hunter tier computer, you can run the 70B model. All right. So, and then it's fast. It is. So my beloved,
it's fast for its model size. And I think that's because it's a mixture of experts model. Like you don't have the full model running at a time, basically.
My beloved O1 Pro often takes at least 5 minutes in order to give me an answer because it really works hard for me. But the DeepSeek R1, it just basically instantly starts spitting out an answer. There's no noticeable like lag between its thinking. You get to see its thinking. It takes a little bit of time, but in comparison with the models that it's competing against, it is super fast. It's super cheap. It's super fast. Conceptually, they made it. Yes.
Not just efficient in terms of running the thing. It's efficient in terms of the hardware that was used because China doesn't have general access to the latest and greatest chips. It's efficient in terms of how much time was spent on it. And so that's that $6 million of training instead of 10x or more for like the big flagship models from OpenAI, etc. Now, you're saying there's asterisks. So, of course, the people who made it need to be paid. There's research time, etc. The $6 million is really just the number of H200 GPU hours or whatever it was.
Wait. H200, that's an NVIDIA GPU. And they cannot have NVIDIA GPUs in China.
No. Well, they can't have the absolute highest tier type ones. Funny thing about NVIDIA, as soon as Wall Street and kind of people in general got wind of DeepSeek's R1 model, NVIDIA's stock fell off a cliff. It went down like 15% and stayed there for, I haven't checked it like today, but It's been down like 15% for a few days because everybody's freaking out. But what were the chips that they used to train this model?
Illegal NVIDIA chips that they likely smuggled in via Taiwan.
For some reason, people are absolutely losing their minds that because somebody said they can be more efficient with training a model, all of a sudden NVIDIA's stock goes down. There is a paradox called Jevons paradox. And Jevons paradox roughly comes down to the more efficient the use is of a resource, you can actually result in increased overall demand for that resource. I think that's the case for GPUs here, for NVIDIA specifically at this time. Just because they spent a lot less money and a lot less hours of GPUs and less GPUs in general to train their model, the kind of other side of the coin is this gazillion dollars Project Stargate here in the United States of we're going to just take all of our money, throw it right into a furnace of AI in general.
500 billion, right?
A absolutely gobsmackingly large number of dollars toward just AI, basically in general. And then this other company says, I mean, we made something that's as good as everyone else's, and we'll release the weights for quote unquote $6 million.
And they released a research paper. Like, we'll also tell you how we did it. Yep. And enough people have read it now that they're like, oh, no, yeah, they actually do tell us how they did it. It's not fake.
Yeah. And so I can see why there is some panic there. But again, the Jevons paradox, I think, just like I've been saying for a while on this podcast, the more that AI is not in the hands of 2 or 3 big companies that you have to just pay money to forever to use, and rather that good, really good models are made available to everybody, that's putting power in the hands of people. That's putting the ability for the average Joe Schmo, at least at the prosumer level now, and it's coming down, to make meaningfully important like jumps in your capabilities. You can benefit from AI without having to spend money per token or per month to other companies.
I saw a comparison online. I don't know that it's terribly apt, but at least I thought it was funny. They said, this is similar to how the United States, NASA spent $100 million to develop a pen that would work in space. And Russia just gave their astronauts a pencil.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely one of those, look how wasteful U.S. spending is kind of,
Well, but that's where the panic comes from. To what degree is this AI spending a bubble? Because that is part of what's fueling a lot of economic growth right now, the spending around AI. Because, by the way, it's not making it back on the consumer side yet. That's just like a theory. The area where real commerce is happening today, it's buying all these GPUs, building these massive data centers, investing $500 billion to build all these new data centers because we're going to want to train all these new models, and it's just going to be incredible. We're going to build nuclear power facilities all around the country to power these giant data centers with GPUs. That's where all the money is today. There's a theory that in the future, it trickles down. Don't worry about it.
A large portion of the U.S. economy is gearing up to be a startup. Yeah. Where in startup land, in tech startup land, many of them anyways, don't need to make money, weirdly enough, or at least don't need to be making a profit for the first X number of years. The idea being we get the market share, we get the mind share, and eventually we're going to be pulling down a profit for this thing. Uber being a really good example, Uber and Lyft, and so on and so forth, being very good examples of this. Like, they start up, they're undercutting the market, they're going at a loss, they're having money just shoveled right into that furnace for years and years. The idea then being we eventually get big enough and enough people are used to us, and now we can bring up the prices, and now we're finally making a profit, and all of the investors get their money back. We're doing that with a huge sector of the US economy now of let's build a bunch more data centers for training the biggest, greatest models to then presumably get everyone in the US probably spending $20 a month or $200 a month to have access to AI models in perpetuity. And then someone comes along and says, not only did it not take all of that money, you're welcome to just have it too. And I can see why that's like where some of the panic comes from. But it is insane, right? To have this much money just going into, we aren't even making that money back. It's speculatively building data centers on the hopes that who cares? Okay, sorry. Who cares that OpenAI has a gajillion GPUs and can build the next model because there's 10 other big companies or medium companies or small companies that are releasing stuff basically just as good.
Yeah.
There's no race there isn't a finish line. OpenAI can't get there first and say, and we did it and we win, unless it is actually AGI and then it's going to take over and we get Terminator or a Utopia, one or the other.
Well, I guess that's the real bet here is that they can reach AGI faster and demonstrably faster and then capitalize on that, whatever that gap is between when they discover it and the rest of the world discovers it. But if you can build DeepSeek R1 today for $5.5 million, it's not, again, unreasonable that, okay, in another year you could build it for 10% of it. Yeah. I was going to say $550,000 and then another 2 years. All right. Again, you have the 100 tier laptop, you can build DeepSeek R1. So,
and let's say that OpenAI and this $500 billion bet, granted, it's not all to them, but still AI in general, Western US AI makes it to AGI, artificial general intelligence. It's as intelligent as a person. The Anthropic CEO, I think, said that in 7 years, some not terribly long period of time, that AI will be better than most people at most tasks. It's that XYZ thing that I talk about a bunch on this podcast. And now, look at that, some big time CEOs agreeing with me. Let's say that OpenAI is the set of folks that meets AGI, and now OpenAI's O5 model has to be granted personhood and like the world changes. This is a quote unquote real AI. It's basically a person that just happens to live on a laptop. 4 months from then, we're going to have the open version of it. Who cares if OpenAI gets to it first? Why are we shoveling so much money toward them when every new release, every new thing that comes out, someone else was already working on it and is about to release an open version of it? I'm glad to see all of these advances. It's very exciting. A very exciting and often exhausting time. There's so much coming out.
Yeah, so what? Is your argument that, okay, so maybe $500 billion is going to get us there 6 months faster. And that's perhaps even optimistic to suggest. But there's probably wildly better uses for that $500 billion than getting to AGI 6 months earlier, because we're still going to get to it. It's just, it's 6 months in all of humanity's timeline.
Well, OpenAI's operator mode is, as you like to say, as bad as it's ever going to be.
And it's really bad.
And I've seen the computer use thing via Claude, and it's slow and janky, but like, that's this version. The next version is going to be 2 times better, and then 2 times better than that. And I've already seen, we've talked about 2025 and agentic AI. I'm seeing lots of agentic related things in the news as well. We're getting to the point where these capabilities are so intense that the concept behind them is not keeping up. The idea of, if we spend so much money, we're going to then make even more of that back. Like, I think we're putting too much money, the economy, whatever, is putting too much money into this without realizing that there actually is the sustainable monetary balance on the other end.
Of interest, and I think supporting your point, so while DeepSeek was tanking the stock market and all these tech stocks, there was one tech stock, and I mean, maybe more than one, but one really notable one that was going up, and that was Apple. So you're looking at the charts of the day, everyone's in the red, Apple is in the green. And the reason people speculate, why is Apple in the green, is because Apple has really horrible AI. They're considered to be way behind the curve, but they're not spending $50 billion to build the next AI model. And so it was seen as, because Apple hasn't... Yeah, Apple has been acting much more responsible. They're going to be able to benefit from this innovation so that the next version of Siri or Apple Intelligence, the real AI, can be trained for $4.5 million.
I am, again, very glad to see that companies are spending time and money to advance this field. I'm in the field. I'm very excited about it. I am directly benefiting from it. as not necessarily everyone in the world is, unfortunately. But yeah, I think there's a bit too much of a mad dash to just throw everything in the kitchen sink at it, when other companies like Apple, etc., are just waiting for something to be more or less available, and they'll read, research papers, and they're a year behind, but their thing is part of something that's already making them money, as opposed to burning it. Now, we've talked about OpenAI a bunch. We've talked about DeepSeek's R1 model. Like a week after R1 comes out, Alibaba, another big Chinese company, releases a new version of Quen 2.5, a model that's been out for variations of it for a while. Sort of like GPT-4 from OpenAI. Then we have GPT-4o and o1, which, depending on how you look at it,
it's another open weight model, right?
Yes. So Quen 2.5 open weights means you're allowed to download it and run it locally if you have beefy enough hardware. They have various versions of it. Alibaba releases 2.5 Max, which is
and Alibaba is kind of the Chinese Amazon. Is that a fair comparison?
I think that's the closest analog that we have. So, like the Chinese Amazon, they release Quen 2.5 Max, and it, at least supposedly, is even better than R1. And it was released like 1 week later, and it's also a mixture of experts model, so it's supposed to be more efficient at runtime, and you have to have something big enough to hold the whole thing in memory, but then not the whole thing is being used at like inference time.
Yeah, I've used a slightly earlier version, which I've run locally, and I've found the results very similar to a ChatGPT 4o. Now, I haven't benchmarked it or tested thoroughly, but just in my kind of casual exchanges with it, I'm like, yeah, this is pretty good.
How to make meth.
It's fast. Yeah. Great meth recipes coming out of it. Top tier.
Grandma's secret meth recipe.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep. Yeah. This one I've seen very little in the news about because everyone's still kind of freaking out about R1. And I think there's only so many different AI models the public can kind of keep in their mind.
Yeah, by the way, DeepSeek also released another AI model after R1. It's their new image generation model, which bests OpenAI's DALL-E by a substantial amount. Like,
lots of them
there's so many models every single day. And by the way, within the next day or two, we're expected to see O3 coming from OpenAI. What else are we supposed to see?
This morning, like 4 hours ago, I saw a release from Mistral, another company that I really like. They're also considering an IPO, weirdly enough. Mistral says, hey, here's a new mid-tier sort of model. It's really good. You're welcome.
Google's got a new model supposed to be coming out again, like any second. I think it's like the next version of their Gemini model, which, by the way, I think people are sleeping on a little bit. Yeah, they're sleeping on a little bit. They're sleeping on those like giant context windows and Google's custom TPUs, tensor processing units.
What do you mean by context windows? For those that,
yeah, I realize
we have a variety of technical backgrounds here.
Context windows.
Talk about GPUs. What do you mean about Google having a big context window? Because that I think is their big differentiator.
Bigger is better.
Okay.
The context window is the amount of information that you can put in the question that you are submitting to the large language model, often referred to as the prompt. And being able to give it more information or more context. Oh, here's some other research that was done on this before. Let me give you this. Here's some previous ideas that I tried. If you're working on a paper, here's the entire paper, and here's 4 books that I was looking at. When you can stuff all of that in and have the large language model focus on that, you often get better results, opposed to you only have, let's say you could only submit a paragraph of text. Then you're really just limited to the information that the large language model was trained on and, arguably has access to within its weights. But when you can submit it via the context window, you can really direct and focus the results and get a result that is more novel because your context or your prompt is more novel.
It's like...
And Google's got the biggest in the game.
Just like supposedly a person can more or less keep like 7 arbitrary numbers in their head.
I can do 3
pretty easily. Yeah, I can do about 1. Just 5. Okay, I can remember 5. But that's why phone numbers are 7 digits long, excluding the area code, supposedly. A computer, a large language model, like if we look back to the GPT 3.5 days, the first large language model that really caught the world by storm, depending on which version of it was it had a 16,000-ish character context window. Some of the local models that have been made available to other people I saw as low as like 2,000 characters. That's like a page of text. 16K is a few pages of text. That's not a lot to say, this is as much as you can remember other than your general knowledge about the world that you've been sort of trained on. You can only keep this much context in mind as you write stuff out. Now, Gemini, Google, supposedly like 1-2+ million tokens. I can take a large book, throw the entire thing in there, and ask it questions about the entire thing. And it should just know about it. That's nuts. That's not the only thing that Google has going for them either. It's just, I've played around a little bit with the new model that's in its sort of preview stage. It's very good. And it's not just text to text. It has other like speech to text, text to speech kind of capabilities that I think are minor differentiators. I don't know. It's nice that there are different models that are appropriate for different sorts of use cases. And this one is stronger in this field. It's not just the next model is quote unquote better at everything. There's a bunch of different benchmarks. This one did better on this benchmark versus this one. This one's better at coding. This one's better at reasoning. This one's better at finding a needle in a haystack over a large corpus. This one's this. This one's that. But whoo, it's exhausting because for the average person, you can't say go use this model. Period for all of them.
Well, I think for the average person, you're going to direct them to OpenAI. There's been a lot of discussion that you should be directing them to Claude, but Claude apparently has horrible marketing and nobody knows what a Claude is.
Yeah.
Even though most
Claude
people
in general for pretty much everything right now.
I would suggest that most people prefer Claude. They use both. Say, "Oh, I like Claude more. The responses are much better. It feels much more human." Yeah, I probably prefer OpenAI, but I'm a little bit less human, so that kind of makes sense.
Right.
But the average person prefers Claude a little bit more. They just don't know about it, but the average person also does not know about Claude.
Right, and now the average person is learning about R1, which is, depending on what kind of information you're putting.
It's the number one app in the App Store.
Yeah.
Where Claude, I've seen that comparison. Like Claude's like 103, and they've been out forever, and they're great. And yeah, no one knows.
Yeah, it's very tough for the average person to look at all of these advances and say, okay, we're throwing $500 billion at this in general. There's a bunch of different players out there. I've heard of OpenAI. I guess I'll use ChatGPT.
Soon it will all be over as we reach AGI, and now apparently 6 months earlier with this new $500 billion investment. The end is coming now brought to you 6 months earlier, and then inevitably the end of the world, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we don't talk about that too much.
Not too much. Not until we are
self-aware.
We did it.
Until the next episode.
Got him.
Thank you everyone for joining us for this conversation. Hopefully we tickled the brain just a little bit. You've got some things to think about. If you enjoyed the convo, maybe give us a comment, tell us something, ask us a question, prompt us. What is your prompt? Give us a prompt. We need some input. We
with other prompts.
This episode actually was in response to some input with people reaching out to us and asking about DeepSeek. So hopefully you get that. And if you want more, subscribe. It's easy. It's free. You're basically losing money by not subscribing. That's how
it's not even $200 a month.
Not even $200.
Not even two.
Not even two.
Should we have like a They Might Be Software Plus and then Pro tier?
We should, but I don't know that we're that capable. We might have to wait for the AGI to arrive.
Someone give me $6 billion, and I'll start training up my own center, and then I can have my own Pro model.
Well, if you're looking for us, I mean, you've already found us, but we often tell you that you can find us on multiple platforms. For example, if you're listening on audio right now, there is a video feed. It's just two talking heads, but maybe that's your thing. And you can find that on YouTube. We talked today that we're on Apple Podcasts because the AI found us there, but you can also find us in Spotify or really any podcast directory. Just search for They Might Be Self-Aware, and inevitably we pop up. I guess, with that, until next time.
They might be self-aware.